When the doors of Al-Sahri Foundation Hospital slammed open, the world inside seemed to pause, the sunlight streaming through the tall windows striking polished floors and clinical white walls in harsh golden lines. The figure that entered was impossible to ignore, a 7-foot giant, broad-shouldered, towering, his eyes burning with rage and confusion. Patients screamed, staff froze, and the monitors beeped louder as if sensing the danger. And yet, amidst the chaos, one figure moved with calm authority. Lina Qureshi, a rookie nurse barely out of training, small in stature but unshakable in resolve. Her gaze immediately found Rashid Al-Sahri, the Arab Billionaire CEO and founder of the hospital, who had been reviewing patient files in his office just steps away. Rashid's sharp instincts had alerted him to every detail, the giant's intent, the chaos spreading like wildfire, the fear in the room, but he didn't panic. Instead, he moved to the center of the lobby, his presence commanding, his tall frame and crisp designer suit radiating authority. Lina stepped forward beside him, her hands shaking slightly, but her eyes locked on the towering threat with uncanny clarity. The giant surged forward, knocking chairs aside and scattering medical supplies. Yet Rashid held his ground, one hand lightly resting on Lina's shoulder, a silent anchor of reassurance. And then, with the kind of precision and instinct that comes from courage under pressure, Lina acted. She sidestepped the giant's momentum, using his own weight against him, guiding him with careful leverage to a stumble that sent him crashing into a medical cart. The ER fell silent for a heartbeat, stunned at the sight of a rookie nurse neutralizing a threat that even the most seasoned security officers would hesitate to confront. Rashid's eyes met hers, a mixture of admiration and incredulity, as Lina steadied herself, calm and composed, chest heaving only slightly from the adrenaline. The giant groaned, trying to rise, but he was no match for her quick thinking and the subtle, commanding presence of a man who had built empires and learned to read danger before it fully emerged. In that sunlit hospital lobby, it became clear to every staff member and patient witnessing the scene. Heroism isn't measured by size or title alone, it is measured by courage, precision, and the willingness to act when fear grips everyone else. And Rashid Al-Sahri, the Arab Billionaire CEO, knew one undeniable truth in that moment. The woman standing beside him, the rookie nurse, had just saved lives and changed the course of the day, instantly shocking everyone, including him. The giant groaned as he tried to rise, but Rashid Al-Sahri's sharp gaze never left him. The Arab Billionaire CEO moved with a silent, commanding presence, his polished shoes clicking softly against the hospital floor, every step radiating authority and unshakable calm. Lina remained close, steady despite the rapid thundering of her heart, her small frame a striking contrast against the giant's colossal size, yet exuding a quiet confidence that stunned even the most experienced security staff. Rashid's voice cut through the tense air, deep and deliberate, a mixture of command and reassurance. Everyone stay back. Lina, control the space. I'll handle the perimeter. Lina nodded, her eyes never leaving the giant as she positioned herself between him and the nearest patients, anticipating every sway, every shift of his enormous body. The giant lunged forward again, hands swinging wildly, yet Lina, with an instinct born of courage and training, sidestepped, guiding his momentum into the edge of a medical cart. It toppled, scattering supplies, the sound echoing like thunder in the bright, sunlit ER. Yet Lina's movements were precise, careful, and utterly fearless. Rashid stepped closer, his own presence a stabilizing force, his eyes scanning the room, calculating risks, weighing every possibility. Calm, he commanded, tone even, almost soothing, yet carrying the weight of his authority. You will not harm anyone here. Understand me. The giant froze for a heartbeat, confusion flickering across his massive features. Lina moved simultaneously, blocking him from advancing toward frightened patients, guiding him with leverage, and subtly maneuvering him toward a safer area, every motion choreographed with instinct and precision. The staff watched in awe, realizing that the young nurse, so new, so underestimated, was orchestrating a containment of an impossibly dangerous man while Rashid's presence reinforced authority without a single act of aggression. Look at me, Lina said, her voice firm, calm, unwavering. The giant's eyes met hers, and for the first time, his rage faltered under the combined weight of authority and courage. Rashid stepped in beside her, one hand slightly brushing hers, not in touch but in silent reassurance, as if transferring unspoken strength. Slowly, the giant sank, exhausted, realizing that size, anger, and intimidation were meaningless against the unyielding resolve of two people who refused to be intimidated, who acted with clarity, precision, and the courage to protect the vulnerable. The sunlight streaked across the polished floor, highlighting every subtle motion, every careful adjustment Lina made, every command Rashid gave, reinforcing control and security in a room that moments ago had teetered on chaos. And in that tense, sunlit hospital lobby, a profound truth became undeniable. Heroism is not measured by stature or status alone. It is measured by courage, skill, composure, and the willingness to act decisively when every other instinct screams to retreat. Rashid Al-Sahri, Arab billionaire CEO and master of power, influence, and calculated risk, finally allowed a small, quiet exhale as he watched Lina guide the giant to a seated, controlled position. The ER remained silent except for the giant's uneven breathing, the distant hum of monitors, and the soft footfalls of staff who now dared to move, inspired and awed by the courage they had just witnessed. Lina's chest rose and fell, a thin sheen of sweat on her brow, but her eyes glimmered with triumph. The rookie nurse had not only stopped a 7-foot giant, she had done so under the most high-stakes scrutiny, beside a man whose wealth and power alone commanded attention. And in that sunlight-filled lobby, Rashid realized something even more vital than strategy or control. Sometimes, the most unexpected people, those underestimated, overlooked, and untested, are the ones capable of the most extraordinary courage and decisive action. The giant slumped slightly, trying to regain composure, but every subtle twitch betrayed exhaustion, frustration, and disbelief. Rashid Al-Sahri didn't take his eyes off him, his posture calm, imperious, every movement calculated, every micro-expression observed, as though he were analyzing a market rival or negotiating a boardroom coup. Yet now the stakes were far more immediate, lives hung in balance, and power was measured in courage, not currency. Lina remained beside him, her small frame unwavering, her hands steady, her eyes sharp, assessing, predicting the giant's next move. She moved with an instinctive grace, sidestepping his massive attempts to lunge or intimidate, redirecting his momentum with leverage that seemed impossible for her size, yet perfectly precise. "Sir," she said, her voice soft but commanding, "I will not let anyone here get hurt. You need to calm down now." The giant's gaze flickered between her and Rashid, confusion replacing his initial rage, his massive shoulders sagging as he struggled to understand how this young nurse had neutralized him, and how the Arab billionaire CEO standing beside her radiated authority that demanded respect without a single act of aggression. Rashid's voice cut through the charged air again, low, steady, and entirely in control. "You underestimate courage, and you underestimate those who act with integrity. Stay seated, or face consequences you are not prepared for." Lina subtly guided the giant toward a safer corner, her movements seamless, almost choreographed, while Rashid's presence behind her reinforced control and projected dominance, not through violence, but sheer influence. Every staff member, every patient, even the security officers, understood that they were witnessing a display of power and precision unlike anything they had imagined, the combination of wealth, authority, and the courage to act decisively when lives were at stake. The giant finally lowered himself into a chair, exhaustion and awe etched into his massive features, as Lina kept a careful distance, her voice still steady, her eyes unwavering. Rashid approached slightly, not threatening, but imposing presence, his hands folded behind his back, suit perfectly tailored, demeanor calm yet undeniable. "You see," he said quietly, almost conversationally, "true strength is not measured by size, by rage, or by intimidation. Strength is measured by composure, skill, and courage in the moment that demands it most." The giant's chest rose and fell unevenly, his eyes now showing a flicker of respect, the realization dawning that he had been bested not by brute force, but by calculated courage and unwavering resolve. Lina exhaled slowly, her adrenaline still pulsing, and Rashid placed a reassuring glance toward her, subtle but affirming. The hospital had returned, slowly, to its rhythm. The monitors beeped calmly, patients murmured in disbelief, and staff quietly regrouped, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. And in that bright, sunlit ER, it became clear to all: power, courage, and integrity can coexist, and when wielded with precision and moral clarity, even the most imposing threats can be neutralized without unnecessary harm. Rashid's presence had amplified Lina's courage, yet her bravery had been the spark. The rookie nurse who defied expectation, controlled chaos, and protected life under impossible odds, standing beside an Arab billionaire CEO who had chosen to guide, not dominate, creating a balance of power, morality, and decisive action that would be remembered long after the day ended. The giant's breathing gradually slowed, though his massive frame still radiated tension, every muscle coiled as if ready to spring again. Rashid Al-Sahri remained a step behind Lina, his presence a calculated shield, his sharp eyes scanning the for any overlooked danger, every detail under his control as if orchestrating a high-stakes negotiation in his corporate empire. But this negotiation involved fear, human lives, and the raw unpredictability of sheer physical power. Lina's small frame moved deliberately, circling the giant to maintain both distance and control, her hands subtly guiding him toward a safer area near the nurse's station, every step precise, instinctive, and unwavering despite the rapid thundering of her heart. "Listen to me," she said, voice calm but authoritative. "You are safe here. But you must follow instructions, or someone will get hurt. Do you understand?" The giant's eyes, wide with disbelief and gradually replaced by dawning comprehension, flickered between her and Rashid. He seemed to register for the first time the extraordinary balance of courage, skill, and authority in the room. A young nurse who moved like a seasoned tactician, and a billionaire CEO whose mere presence commanded immediate respect without a single raised hand. Rashid stepped forward, his tone deep and measured, a subtle authority that spoke of decades of commanding influence. Strength is meaningless when it is untamed. Courage paired with judgment is what protects the vulnerable. The giant's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from him as he realized the reality. He could not overpower Lina's precision, nor could he ignore the quiet but undeniable power exuded by Rashid. Lina continued to guide him, her hands firm yet careful, every movement calculated to ensure safety without intimidation. Staff and patients watched in awe, their fear slowly replaced by disbelief and growing admiration as the improbable scene unfolded. A 7-foot giant subdued not by force, but by courage, skill, and ethical authority. Rashid's gaze never left the man, assessing, commanding, yet never cruel, never punitive, a master of influence who understood that true power lies in protection, in restraint, and in the moral courage to act decisively. The giant finally sank into the designated area, seated, exhausted, yet unharmed, a humbling realization dawning across his enormous face. Lina exhaled, a thin sheen of sweat on her brow, but her stance remained steady, calm, her eyes reflecting both relief and the pride of extraordinary achievement. Rashid approached her briefly, the sun catching the edge of his tailored suit, and with a subtle nod he acknowledged her courage and precision. In that moment, the entire understood the rare truth they had witnessed. Heroism and power are not defined by height, wealth, or physical dominance. They are defined by moral clarity, courage under pressure, and the wisdom to act decisively when the world expects fear and hesitation. And as sunlight spilled across the polished floor, glinting off Lina's badge and Rashid's tailored suit, a quiet understanding settled over everyone present. This was not just a triumph over physical threat, it was a triumph of integrity, ethical authority, and extraordinary human courage. The giant sat in the corner, massive frame slumped, his breathing uneven, but Rashid Al-Sahri and Lina knew the situation still demanded vigilance. The Arab billionaire CEO stood a few steps behind her, posture impeccable, eyes scanning the room with a sharp, calculating intensity that had earned him empires. Yet now his wealth and power were meaningless compared to the immediacy of human lives in peril. Lina's small hands rested lightly on the giant's arm as she guided him toward stability, her calm authority softening his massive, tense frame. Every movement she made was deliberate, instinctive, ensuring no sudden motion could escalate danger, while Rashid's presence reinforced control without aggression, radiating a quiet but undeniable dominance that commanded respect. "Focus," Lina said, voice steady. "Listen to me. You are safe. But this ends now. We protect life here, yours included, but you must cooperate." The giant's eyes, still wide, finally held something more than anger, comprehension, perhaps even a flicker of respect. Rashid stepped closer, his voice carrying the weight of authority and wisdom. Strength is nothing without judgment. Courage is meaningless without restraint. This is your lesson, as it has been ours. Security moved in cautiously, guided entirely by Rashid and Lina, prepared to intervene if necessary, but now witnessing the extraordinary effectiveness of precise, ethical leadership paired with instinctive courage. The giant slowly leaned back, the fight leaving his posture, every movement subdued under Lina's careful guidance. The ER, once a storm of panic and chaos, had settled into a tense calm, sunlight pouring across polished floors, highlighting the improbable scene. A rookie nurse standing resolute beside an Arab billionaire CEO, having neutralized a threat that dwarfed all previous expectations. Staff whispered to one another, patients peeked from behind counters, all understanding the gravity of what had transpired. Lina's chest rose and fell evenly now, her adrenaline still simmering, yet her eyes were calm, unwavering. Rashid allowed a subtle nod, his tailored suit catching the sunlight, a quiet acknowledgement that she had not only executed skill under pressure but had upheld the principles he valued most: courage, precision, and ethical action. The giant remained seated, finally quiet, the reality of his defeat, subtle, controlled, without humiliation, settling over him. In that moment, every observer grasped a vital truth. True strength is not in size, wealth, or intimidation, but in composure under pressure, decisive action, and the courage to protect life without unnecessary harm. Rashid Al-Sahri and Lina Qureshi, standing together in the sunlit ER, had not only saved the day, they had demonstrated the extraordinary balance of power and morality, the essence of heroism under impossible odds, and the undeniable truth that integrity, courage, and ethical authority define true leadership, far beyond titles, empires, or fear. And in the quiet that followed, as monitors hummed softly and sunlight glinted across badges and polished floors, everyone knew they had witnessed a story of courage, precision, and moral mastery that would be remembered far longer than the chaos of that morning. The giant sat motionless now, chest rising and falling, the fight finally drained from him, yet the memory of what had happened lingered in every fiber of his being. Rashid Al-Sahri stood tall beside Lina, his tailored suit impeccable, eyes sharp and unyielding, radiating the authority of a man who commanded empires yet understood that true power lies in protection, restraint, and moral courage. Lina's small frame remained poised, her hand still lightly on the giant's arm, steady, confident, and unafraid even after the adrenaline of the encounter. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Al-Sahri Foundation Hospital, casting long golden streaks across the polished floor, highlighting the improbable scene. A 7-foot giant subdued, a rookie nurse whose courage had defied expectation, and an Arab billionaire CEO whose presence had amplified both control and ethical authority. "You are safe now," Lina said quietly, her voice calm but resolute. "But you must understand, strength is nothing without respect, courage is nothing without restraint." Rashid added, his deep, measured voice resonating with power and wisdom. "The world measures power by wealth, size, or influence. But true power, true leadership, is measured by the courage to act decisively, the integrity to protect the vulnerable, and the restraint to do so without cruelty." The giant's shoulders sagged, his eyes reflecting a newfound comprehension, perhaps even respect, as he finally accepted the impossible fact. He had been bested not by force, but by intellect, courage, and the moral authority of two people who refused to be intimidated. Staff and patients watched in stunned silence, some whispering, others holding their breath, all aware that they had witnessed something extraordinary, a rare display of human courage, skill, and ethical power under pressure. Rashid placed a subtle, approving glance at Lina, acknowledging the bravery and precision she had displayed, a quiet reinforcement that her courage had been as important as his authority in neutralizing the threat. The ER returned gradually to its rhythm, the monitors hummed, footsteps echoed softly, and sunlight continued to pour through the windows, but the memory of what had transpired would linger. The lesson was indelible. Heroism is not defined by size, wealth, or dominance, but by clarity, courage, and ethical action in moments that demand it most. Rashid Al-Sahri and Lina Qureshi had demonstrated the extraordinary balance of power, morality, and courage, proving that true leadership uplifts the vulnerable, neutralizes threats with precision, and commands respect without violence. And in that sunlit hospital, a silent truth emerged. When courage meets clarity, when authority meets integrity, and when action is guided by moral courage, even the most impossible challenges can be overcome. True power is measured not by wealth, status, or size, but by the courage to act when fear surrounds you, the clarity to make decisive choices under pressure, and the integrity to protect the vulnerable without compromise. Heroism is quiet yet undeniable, calculated yet fearless, and it thrives in those who wield authority not to dominate, but to safeguard life, uphold justice, and inspire courage in others. Real strength rises not from intimidation, but from the unwavering will to do what is right, even when the world expects you to falter.